Hey guys, how's it going? Paul Harris here. Welcome back to another one of my videos. Today I'm going to talk about productivity, working as, say, like a financial analyst or a finance business partner, and how you can increase your productivity. Now, in these kind of jobs, I find there's a lot of processing to have to do, you might have to download lots of data, you have to analyze a lot of data, and therefore jobs can sometimes be split up into tasks. Now, obviously, if you're more senior and you're sort of like a manager and managing people, some of this won't apply because you're more about delegating work. But when you're definitely in a job where you have like task orientation, where you can split up jobs, I think this video will be helpful for you. At least I find myself to be relatively productive. I tend to find that I can get a lot of my work done within my work day. That's not generally what happens within a finance role. People seem to work ungodly hours, but I don't really like doing that. I like to try and get all my work done within the time that I'm at the office. So with that being said, I'm going to talk about what I do to increase my productivity. Let's get into it. The first thing you have to do when you're at work, or you want to revise, or you want to try and set yourself the target of doing something, is you have to really convince yourself that what you're about to do is what you really want to do. Okay, without that, you're just going to be pottering around, not really getting it done. If you're trying to go in to the office and say you wanted to try and revise for an exam, or if you just want to plow through a number of work and you're not really feeling it and you're distracted, you're just going to look at Instagram, you're not going to be bothered trying to work through it. So you have to convince yourself somehow that what you're doing is what you really want to do, which I'm sometimes quite good at doing. I tend to laugh through the pain of when someone gives me a lot of work to do, like, oh, this is going to take me a long time, see the humor in it, and then tackle the job. Now, the second one on the list is when you're given a job, assume, even if you don't have a deadline, that work needs to be done in the next 2 hours. So there's something called Parkinson's Law, which basically means that your level of work is going to expand in the time that you have available to do it. So give yourself a short period of time, or accept what you anticipate a job's going to take, and really set yourself the deadline of doing it within that time. Because you're just going to effectively, your brain's going to try and work harder. When you have a set deadline, you just work, you get that sort of adrenaline rush to try and get a job done. So set yourself very strict timelines on each job, so you don't start just faffing around and taking ages to do stuff. The third one, which might not sit well with everybody, but accept the limitations of the job that you've been given to do. Sometimes, particularly as like a finance analyst, you might not have all the information available, particularly not all the information available right this second, to get a job done perfectly. So accept that certain assumptions have to be made, make the decision on what assumptions you want to choose, and just run with it. The next thing to try and increase your productivity is use the 80-20 rule. Now what does the 80-20 rule actually mean? Well, it means that 20% of the work that you do is going to have 80% of the effective output. So really focus and prioritize the important parts of your work. Either prioritize it in terms of, obviously, like a deadline, so if something comes in you have to do it, or prioritize it in terms of who the most senior person is that is asking you to do certain pieces of work, and really focus on that and stop wasting time focusing on the smaller details. Because what I sometimes find people do at the office is they focus on pointless tasks that no one really cares about, and then realize near the end of the day that they have to actually get something done that a lot of people are going to care about, and then they start working on it late, and then you end up working very late in the office because you've done a lot of pointless stuff in the morning. A lot of people, like CEOs, they just make a lot of key decisions early on in the day. The important stuff usually happens at the earliest point. Now, I guess some people are going to be better at working late or better at working in the morning. I generally find I am best working between the hours of 7 and 1. And then after lunch, I just find my productivity dips. So you have to really, that's another good one that I didn't even put on the list to talk about, but understand how you kind of work, which part of the day do you work the most effectively, and make sure those parts of the days are the bits where you're doing the most important work, and you don't waste your time doing unimportant work, at the start of the day. Another one, okay, which is very important, is to make lists. So I use that sticky note feature on your laptop, and I split it into 3 different sections. The first section is to do today, the second section is to do tomorrow, and the third section is to do long term. And obviously, I try and limit the stuff that I want to do today into, say, 3 or 4 items. Now, the importance of doing this is it sets your schedule on what you're prioritizing. You can think about which is the most important work, as opposed to just, sort of having it in your head that you have loads to do and you're just sort of running on trying to work what's in your head. Whereas if you have a list, you can really focus and understand and start managing how long each thing's going to take and what you actually have on your list to do. Because if you're just trying to think in your head, it's actually very stressful to try and complete a task whilst maintaining the information of what you have to do next. So the more you can write down in a clear way, just short lists of 4 things that you want to do, and you can break up a large task into lots of different sections on what you need to do today. So if it's like a large task, don't just write, do this entire presentation. Write like the sections of the presentation that you want to do. Then you can start ticking it off. And you get that satisfaction of ticking off different things on that list. And here's another important point. When you have a list of things, and say you get an email come through, unless it's not a very important person sending you that email, say you just have an email come through requesting information, don't stop your job to look at the email and then read the email and then go back. Even if you're not doing the job, and don't look at the emails at all. Look at the fact that someone sent you an email and write down on the list to do today to respond to that email. So you're not even reading it and understanding what you need to do in that email. You're not focusing on it, because what you're doing is focusing on the job at hand. And that's the next one on the list, is only focus on one job at a time. The idea that multitasking is a thing is a complete myth. Even if you're a woman, there's no such thing as multitasking. You can only ever focus on one job at once. Obviously it's not possible to do 2 emails at the same time. You're just not going to do it. You can only ever switch quickly. And then every time you switch from one job to another job, you have to start rejigging your mind into what this other job involves you needing to do, to then move on to that. Every time you switch, you have to rethink the whole process. If you can just stick to one job and see it through, then you're going to be so much more focused and, get through stuff a lot quicker. And then you can move on to the next job that you think is the second, priority of that day. But only ever have one job that you want to do. So this goes back to the emails, like if you have one job to do and an email comes through, don't even look at the email and acknowledge what would need to be done to complete that task. Just leave that email, write down on the sticky notes, email back this person, and then you can just continue to focus on the job at hand. Another thing I find with doing tasks, and this is specific maybe to if you're just using Excel, or at least I use Excel a lot. I imagine some companies have moved past needing to use Excel, but I use it a lot. But one thing I find that really irritates me sometimes is when I'm working with somebody who has 20 tabs open. And it's like they're doing 6 different tasks at once. If you're doing a task, really just have one Excel open, and then if you need to open up other information, open up another Excel document. But only ever have like 3 tabs, not within a specific workbook, but I mean like 3 different workbooks open. Because then you're just going to be able to find information quicker. As soon as you start trying to do 7 things at once, you have to have 20 different Excel documents open, each of them coordinating to different types of workbooks. It just doesn't work. I mean, ideally, if you're even using a lot of data and it's data between different tabs, you should bring that data into just one Excel document as just one specific tab, okay? So you have the specific workbooks spread across different documents. But what I'm saying is you should just use one Excel. It's going to be so much quicker if all the data is within that one Excel. Because then when you're using the data, you're not pulling through and having to open up different Excel documents and close different Excel documents. It's all just there on one document. Another thing you find as a finance analyst or a finance business partner or any sort of finance role is a lot of roles involve just getting information from different people. And this I find to be quite an annoyance at times because it slows you down in terms of getting work done. So, but if you reach a point and you're doing an piece of work and you require someone's input, don't just accept the fact that you don't have that input, and then, or firstly, ring the person, see if you can get the information straight away. If they don't pick up the phone, send them an email, but don't sit around waiting for that email to come back. Actually just move on to a different task of that one piece of work. If you think that you can't move past needing that piece of information, don't think, oh, they haven't sent me the information, oh, I can't do anything until they send me the information. Just stop doing that piece of work and move on to the next thing. Because you're just wasting time. And then sometimes you might spend some time trying to work it out yourself, even though you know you need that piece of information from somebody. So stop trying to work it out yourself if it's not something you can work out, and just accept that you don't have the information and move on. So the final 2 points that I will raise is the first, because, as I said before, you have to get information from a lot of different people when you work at these companies, particularly as like a finance analyst, finance business partner, as I said. It's important to actually get to know everybody. Don't just limit yourself to knowing just your finance team and getting information from them and they're having to ask somebody else. Always just go to the source of who has the information. If you find yourself asking somebody and they have to find someone else and they have to find it off someone else, and you're playing the middleman game where things just take ages because you're relying on other people to do your work for you. If you just go straight to the source of the information, then you get to know more people in the company. You can actually complete information a hell of a lot quicker. So that is particularly important, I find. Also, then people start asking you information because you're the one who's able to know everybody in the company that can start providing you with the information. So it's a bit frustrating when that happens because you just become the middleman between different people. But it's useful to know who does different things. Also, it limits the amount that when someone asks you to have information, you can just find it, as opposed to going, oh, I don't do that, which is a very annoying response I get from people working in this job. It's like, you'll ask people and they'll just establish that that's not my role. It's like, okay, great, but can you help me though? But that's just a side point. So, final thing, that sort of relates to the last one in terms of getting to know everybody, is understand every system in your company and what data pulls from where and how you can access information independently. Because it's one thing to be able to ask somebody to provide you a document. If they provide you a report, then understand why you couldn't have just got that report yourself. Because this is an annoying thing when people ask me stuff that I think to myself, you could have just ran this report yourself, and it would have been quicker than asking me and relying on my timeline. Because everybody you ask a question to, they have their own work to do. They're not just sitting around waiting for requests. So they have their own work to do, and you're going to be low on the pecking order maybe. So if you can get the information yourself by running a report from different systems, it's going to be so much quicker. And then, if you can run the report yourself, you can maybe be able to customize it. Then when you work it into an Excel book, if it's something that you need all the time, then you might be able to just get the report in a way that allows you to then create certain data models off the back of it. You just get work done a lot quicker. Sometimes I find the best days of, for me, getting to a point in my job where I can pretty much work independently and rarely need to ask other people for information is a great point. Because if you can then don't have to rely on other people to give you information, you can run the reports, dig into the detail, and all your job really entails then is getting the answers to what's behind the numbers. But that's it. That's hopefully helpful in terms of how you can increase your productivity. The more you can work independently, the more you can establish what tasks are the most important, splitting those tasks down, establishing a timeline for how long those tasks are going to take, assuming that there's a deadline even if there isn't, doing the most important things at the beginning of the day, because then maybe the less important things you don't even need to do today. You can do them tomorrow, potentially, because certain jobs aren't going to have specific deadlines. Anyway, there we go. I hope you found that useful. Those are the things that I use. A number of things that I use. There's probably more techniques and different things I do to get my work done quicker. Hopefully you enjoyed that video. If you did, like it, subscribe. See you next time. Bye-bye.